All right, so we got out here. We started the job. Seems pretty decent. Rumor on the block is that they're going to start competing with Boise and Reno as far as pay and incentives. So keep your eye on 354 because although it doesn't explicitly say that Washington State license reciprocates with Utah, it kind of does. So they recognize Washington's licensing exam as having sat for Utah's. You just send the information they needed, and the next day they email you back after you pay them, and you've got your Utah license in the email. Right? So, good book to keep an eye on. So on my way out here, I thought about some stuff. I had a great conversation with brother Josh on the phone for about an hour. He's out in, I think he's in Boise. I don't know. But him and I kind of talked. He was talking about buying a travel trailer, and we had a great conversation about it. And I kind of wanted to pique my interest, because it's what I want to avoid is dudes watching this, and he's like, "Oh yeah, he's sitting there lecturing us, sitting in a, not everybody can afford a travel trailer." And it's the reality of the fact is, I would not recommend that. Hey, go out and do this because it makes it easier. Does it make it easier? Not really. It adds a lot more layers of complexity than there needs to be, whereas, and it's a lot more expensive than going out and just finding a month-to-month room or furnished studio apartment or something like that by a fair amount, depending on what you get. And then you have to also look at the additional layers of tasks and maintenance that you need to do, and if you're working 6-7 days a week, it can get pretty old. I can tell you right now that having to go out and refill your propane tank or tanks when you're working 710s or 712s is something you'd rather not do. However, it has to get done, especially if it's cold out. Otherwise, your shit's going to freeze solid. So if you're thinking like, oh well, a travel trailer is an option, like it certainly is. I would not recommend it to anybody that is maintaining a household in 46. It's like I said, the initial capital expenditure to get set up for it isn't cheap. And it adds a layer of complexity to getting where you need to go, because now you have to really pay attention to the weather. You need to start analyzing routes. You're going to pay a lot more money in fuel, and parking it isn't at a long-term site isn't cheap. Out here, the cheapest I've found is $650 a month, but they've got a waiting list, and where I'm at now is $900. In addition to putting gas in my truck that is big enough to haul this thing, and all the stuff I have to do at the house isn't cheap either. If I was not doing this full time, I would have driven out here in something that got a lot better fuel economy and would just rent a room, but everybody's situation is different, right? So I just wanted to dispel that myth, right? Because it doesn't make it any easier than shacking up at an extended stay hotel until you get on the job and network a little bit and figure out who's living where, who needs a roommate. That's how most guys do it. Now, my advice to the brother I spoke with was, I thought for him it was a pretty good shot, because he's single guy. He doesn't have anything tying him down, and he really enjoys traveling, and he wants to do it full time for the foreseeable future. And if you're going to spend a lot of time like that on the road for an extended period of time, it's it is nice to come home and have a space that's yours, that's not shared with anybody else, right? So if you are thinking that it's a good idea and you've got some questions about what you should be looking for or looking at, I'm more than happy to share what my process was, so that you can make the most educated decision possible, because these things are very much hit or miss in terms of quality, and getting a bad one that was thrown together can really put you in a bind, and I've seen that happen to guys more than once, and it is not a good situation. So yeah, I figured that covered that. That being said, if any of you guys do want to come out here to 354, and my family's not here, I do have a place you can crash. We'd be on top of each other until you can figure something out. But if that's what's holding you back, get a hold of me. All right, so the other thing I was saying about is the rules of the road. Now, I was coming up through the apprenticeship. It was during the boom. Most of the instructors I had were career shop guys, right? Very few of them traveled. It really wasn't discussed, and the way they kind of talked about it was almost like it gave the idea that things are going to be great, and that if you wanted to, you could commit to a contractor for like 25 years. And the reality is that 99.9% of you, that's not going to happen. Even if it is, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen foreman GFs get smoked, because at the end of the day, whatever the administrative staff of whatever contractor told you in the dock, you guys are not a family. All you are is a temp worker and a number on payroll, right? Your family are the dudes that are out in the field with you, because when push comes to shove, they don't care about your bottom line, they care about theirs. So the rules of the road are kind of, they are, if you go to the Where to Bro website, Bo Moreno has them written there. But it's pretty simple, and what it breaks down to more or less is this. When you hit the road, you are a guest in somebody else's house, right? So you need to conduct yourself accordingly, right? Because every local operates a little differently. They all have their own CBAs, and you need to know what they are, because you might get away with doing some wormy shit, or you might wind up getting brought up on charges, and you may not know any better. I've seen guys get caught pulling stuff out of their tool bag that shouldn't have been there, and they got brought up on charges because your tool list is it's in the contract, and by pulling those tools out, you are breaking contract, and it doesn't matter what your opinion is on it, it's wrong. And if the wrong guy sees it, they will have something to say about it, and they might be cool about it and say, hey dude, what the hell are you doing with that? Go put that in the truck. Go put it in your car. Don't bring it back. Or they might just kind of look at it, go, huh, and then go find the stew. And if the stew wants to be a dick about it, yeah, you're gonna be in some hot water. It's easier just to avoid it. Clean your shit out, get the consumables out there, figure out what needs to stay, what needs to go. If you need to pick something up, then there's some silly, some tool lists out there where it's like, what the hell is this? Like Kansas City's got a 100-foot tape measure on their tool list. I bought one, showed up with it, and they said, I don't know why you brought that, put it back in the truck. I'm like, all right, well, it's on your tool list, so I brought it. The biggest ones that I see that kind of get tossed to the side is work on the call you took, right? So if you take a call at Micron, for example, or Meta, and your foreman or GF comes up to you and says, hey, do you want to go work nights? We're trying to get a night crew put together. Your answer should be, you can put calls in. I've been approached, and that was my response. The reason why is this, right? Work is really, really scarce in that area of the country. And you guys know what it's like to be sitting there and going, oh shit, like, it's like a 3-week wait to get out on 291 and I need to go make some money. The more calls that go in, the quicker you're going to move up the books and be able to catch out and fill your plate, right? So if you have brothers and sisters out there that effectively are just like, fuck everybody else, I'm going to get mine, they just screwed you, I know that transfers are kind of the standard in 46, but you got to understand you are not in your home local. You know, I have very strong opinions about it, regardless if I'm working book 1 or book 2. But I also understand that the culture out there is different. When you do stuff like that, not only are you tarnishing your reputation, because the traveler community is small. I sat down with a guy for lunch yesterday that knew one of my old toolies at Panasonic. It is a small, small world. You don't want your name out there like that. You're also representing your local, right? We don't have, the West Coast in general does not have a stellar reputation for being, having good solidarity, right? They call it the wormy West. Because the things that are kind of normal there, if you pulled out in the Midwest or in places on the West Coast, I mean, you'd have a hard time. You know, there'd be a lot of guys with a lot of things to say. It'd be very quickly you wouldn't feel very welcome. You know, and the reality of the fact is that, dude, you're on the road. You know, and there's so much work out there right now. If you want to go make more money, you know, you probably can. Or if you're worried about getting laid off, so what? You're already on the road. Go somewhere else. You know, you're not there to try and get on steady. You're there to make a bunch of money so that you can support yourself or your family or somebody else. And when your turn's up, your turn's up. You know, just keep those things in mind, right? Because there's more than enough out there for everybody to have their share. But if we don't get a handle as a whole on the, basically what I refer to as the fuck you, I got mine mentality, you know, nothing's really going to change. Nothing's going to improve. And we're just going to continue this self-deprecating cycle of, guys living high and fat on the hog and then getting kicked into the mud and being like, oh, well, this sucks. It's like, we got to be the change, you know. And I think we're starting to move that direction, but that's a different conversation. So, rules of the road, housing, as I stated, you don't need an RV to do this. I wouldn't recommend it for 99% of people that are maintaining households in that high cost of living area, but I don't know your situations. And as stated, if you have questions about 354, you're thinking about buying a rig and hitting the road full time, get a hold of me. I'm more willing to help you guys out however I can. So, as always, stay safe out there. Don't blow your hands off or fingers off. They're important. That's how we make our money. And be safe. Happy 4th of July.